Welcome to another episode of Artistry, where art meets industry. We are your hosts, Rachelle Etienne-Robinson and Stan Substantial Robinson. Peace, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Artistry, where art meets industry. We are your hosts, again, Rachelle Etienne-Robinson, and this guy, Stan Substantial Robinson.
Good to see y'all.
Today, I know it's been a while, so thank you guys for joining us. Today we have a special guest, a dear friend. She is an artist, an illustrator. She is an entrepreneur. She is a writer. Please welcome to the show. Our guest today is Kenya Danino. Kenya, welcome. Peace Queen. How are you?
Hello.
Hey. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to learn more about your creative journey and your latest projects that you have. You guys have some exciting work that we want to share with folks. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go right into it. First and foremost, I want to say, how are you? Genuinely, how are you? And more important, how has your last year and a half been with this pandemic?
I'm doing all right now. The last few years have been crazy, but in a good way. I mean, we went through a lot, like my whole entire family and we went through a lot these past couple of years. And it really got me thinking about a lot of things that I wanted to talk about for a while in story form and in art form. And I decided that like this time was the time to do it, especially in a time where most of us are coping with a lot of loss and difficulties. I think the artwork that I'm doing right now is actually like shedding some light on that. So it's been a wild ride for the past couple of days and months, but taking it in stride.
Great.
The helmet is fire, by the way. Okay, we out here just having conversation like you don't have this amazing work of art on your head right now. Before we continue, can you tell us about like the helmet?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this helmet is very symbolic of like my favorite creature, the fox, but also the main character in a story that I'm developing currently called Animal Arithmetic, which Stan and I are co-working on right now. Yes. Animal Arithmetic is like my biggest dream project. Like that's my passion baby. And the helmet actually comes from an artist named Garuda Workshop. She envisions a lot of different spirit animals in like more or less a helmet, high-tech sci-fi kind of form, and that's exactly what I was looking for. And I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna rebrand myself with the fox more often, I'm gonna do it this way because this just looks cool. So shout out to Garuda Workshop for this.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
For sure.
So near and dear to my heart, a fellow Queens native. Now, I read that you are from Queens. Are you from Queens originally?
Yeah, born in Elmhurst.
Born and raised.
Born and raised, though.
Yep. Nice. Same like me. Born in Rosedale. Represent.
Hey.
Tell us all about your family. Tell us is your family from New York originally?
No, actually, my family's from down South Carolina, Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
A lot of us, we shifted into different parts of the United States. Like some of my family is still down South. Some of them are in North Carolina, some in Georgia. A lot of us are in New York now. We also have an uncle and an aunt in Maryland. So, yeah.
Okay,
That's
DMV.
awesome. That's what's up. What part of Maryland? We like to get
Don't
specific.
ask me because I'm directionally challenged.
Okay. Right.
The last time we visited them was probably like, I want to say 4 years ago. And that was my first time meeting that uncle, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like our family's like way out there. Like there's some members of my family I haven't even met yet.
Right. Wow.
So, in regards to your art, what do you remember your first introduction into the arts? And it could be music, it could be visual arts. What was your first introduction?
Okay. Well, I've been drawing, like actually drawing, ever since middle school. I actually had a thing where I was really jealous of the majority of my family because they could dance and I can't. Might have something to do with being directionally challenged. Um, so I actually took dance class first. Um, and my dance teacher would always see me drawing these things. And at the time, I was really obsessed with like Neopets and things of that generation, like those little small games that you play on the internet when you were a kid in the 90s, um, in the early 2000s. So I went from there, and then my dance teacher recommended me to the art teacher and was like, she is phenomenal. Like, she's a hard worker, but this is clearly her passion. She needs to go here. And from there, things just kind of took off. I entered a lot of contests. As a kid, I went to the High School of Art and Design and took up cartooning and animation as like a mini major because the school is set up that way where you can do that. And then I took that with me into Boston College, and it was in Boston College that I started getting really into the arts industry. I had my first internship ever with a studio called Soup to Nuts in Watertown, Massachusetts, and they at the time were creating shows for PBS Kids. So I actually got to intern on the show Word Girl, and that was like the big introduction to like animation in general. And I was also interested in children's books at the time. So that's where actually this image came from, because when I was looking for work in college, I was creating my own website. And at first I was catering to the children's book like the industry. So I made this illustration because I love boxes. It's always like, that's always been my spirit animal. The animal that I like most relate to. And I also study a lot of like animal behavior because I used to be a pre-med major. So I went into biology and I actually took animal behavior as an elective.
Wow.
And yeah, I merged that with my love of like children's book illustrations and quirky cartoons. And that's how it started.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. You know, you're one of the few people that I know that still, a lot of us go to college and you pursue your career. While at Boston College, you studied African diaspora studies, creative writing, as well as studio art. And you are incorporating all of those things in your current project, which we'll talk more about. But talk to us more about your experience at in
Okay.
Boston.
Boston was a wild, wild, wild ride. Um, I want to say I got into both like professional arts and music while at Boston College, because Boston College had a very little small choir called the Voices of Imani. And I was like very interested in actually auditioning for the choir. I know that my mom and my grandmother used to sing in a choir, and like I'm spiritual folk, so it resonated with me that there was this very small humble group on campus like just dedicated to like speaking the word in song. And I was like, all right, I have to join this choir. Through joining that choir, that's how I ended up taking the African diaspora
Wow.
major minor. And one of the professors was actually the leader of the choir, and his name was Professor Chauncey. I will never forget this guy. He was a character. But also he knew his stuff, and he had a whole class called Gospel According to Hip Hop, Blues, and Jazz. And that's
Oh,
like, yeah, yeah, you don't see that. Not in
right.
Boston.
Right. That's dope.
Right. So like right off the bat, this guy became my favorite professor, and we like everything just kind of took off from there. Like every branch of music that I learned about in depth that came from the African diaspora, like that all just like literally Boston College, that experience was a whole melting pot of where I am now. It
Wow.
just like kind of seasoned itself along the years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Take us back to you had mentioned about your internship where you got to work on Word Girl. Take us to your first freelance job and what experience and what lessons that you learned through that whole process?
Okay. My first freelance job was doing character designs for a company. I don't think they're around anymore, but it was a very small publishing company called Penny Farthing Press. They were developing a kids show called Lock, and it was kind of about the Loch Ness monster. So they had me do character designs for like mermaids and sea creatures for the show, and it was actually really cool. I'd never done like character design before, but it's always been like my dream starting out as a kid to do character design for an animation studio. So that was my first taste of that as a freelancer. And it wasn't a lot, but to a kid that's literally fresh out of college, it was a big deal. And then after that, it opened the door to working out of the US because Penny Farthing had a partnership, if you will, with a studio in India called Bluebell's Animation. And Bluebell's later hired me to do character designs for a kids' TV show called Gopher and Kid. And I guess like animals were just a thing that people came to me for. So that's how it happened. But those were like the two very first freelance opportunities that I got doing character design.
Wow. Yeah, one of the other things that like outside of the character design, one of the things that you do that's really interesting as well is you design a lot of different like merchandise. I know you've done that for other companies, but you've done really well for yourself actually doing enamel pins and a wide variety of other things for yourself. So kind of tell us how that came about, like what led you to that.
Oh, okay. So I think the first opportunity that led me into discovering the realm of being a promotional artist, like just artists that do merchandise and promo stuff, was a contest that I had entered for the former We Love Fine. Now I think it's called For Fans, by Fans. They put out a contest for a design to have official How to Train Your Dragon 2 merchandise made. And one of the designs that I put out there, because I love How to Train Your Dragon,
It's a great movie.
Chris Sanders was like the first artist that I was like in awe of and like literally tried to get to know. And he was actually the first person to encourage me to keep going with character design when I reached out to him. But that design that I entered in the contest actually won, and it was placed on t-shirts. And like I could say like, oh my goodness, I actually made like something like it was a fan art, but it turned out to be official merch, and it was really kind of cool. And then after that, couple of years later, an opportunity presented itself to me for Soho Press in New York, and a writer and an illustrator named Robert Rapino, he was making a book series called the D-Arc series, and it was kind of like Animal Farm to the extreme. And I love dystopian literature, and I love Animal Farm. So he saw my work and asked Soho Press to contact me to make a promotional poster for the book to have their pet like made into a character to be put in the series. So I made that poster, and that poster kind of blew up because the book expo or the book con in New York actually displayed it like huge on a banner in the Javits Center. That was the first time I was like, whoa, okay. Like I'd never seen that before. My work was always like behind the scenes. Like it was never like printed on a giant banner.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So, like, yeah, that kind of opened my eyes, and I'm like, I want to do more of that.
Right. That's awesome.
Like that's where it started, and then I decided, like, okay, I'm gonna, do my own thing as well as reach out to people to see if this is something that they would potentially want. So something that I noticed over the years, especially during the hard months of the pandemic when it started, people were missing out on cons, like conventions, like that whole culture was just like everyone wanted it, but they couldn't have it because COVID was like the roadblock to stopping everything from happening safely. So all the whole entire fan base for conventions went online and started supporting small businesses and small artists who were starting up. And one thing that I noticed was that people really like to collect merchandise, like the collector's mentality rose up again. Like once upon a time, it was like it was almost like looked upon as silly to like collect things like coins and stuff. But now collecting pins is like a major thing. And like when you collect pins, some of the pins that you collect, depending on how exclusive you make them, can go for hundreds of dollars resold.
Wow.
So it's almost like if you kept jewelry in your drawer for a hard time, pins are now that type of thing.
Right.
But it also gave artists an outlet to start making income during the rough months of the pandemic, and kind of express their style in doing so. So what I do on my store for the Fox Box is I have an account also called Graphox on Instagram. What I do is I actually make pins in my style of both original ideas and fan art ideas from different like anime and cartoons that people like. And I guess a lot of people really like love the designs because they were unique. And they just kind of took off from there. And the majority of business that I've gotten from just doing these pins have been able to kind of fund all of the other things that I wanted to do for the longest time. So it worked out because people really like the pins, and then they discover my art through the pins.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, your work is, from the merchandise to your original art, like it's just amazing. And one of the things I really admire about you, you truly have like your own style, right? Like when I look at your stuff, it's like it's not hard to figure out. Like, oh, I know who did that. That's KD's work, hands down. And it doesn't matter what IP you're drawing or illustrating. Like I can always see your style. So could you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did you we ask musicians all the time, or writers, like how they found their voice. Like, how did you find your style of art?
Oh man, that took years. It's more so like that artistic journey where you're trying to figure out not only where you like belong in the art realm, like where you can see yourself working professionally. It also takes like, all right, who are you as a person, and what do you want, like what do you want to use to like represent you in your style, like what will scream KDFoxx. So it went from my interest being in children's books, which it still is, but it like what I really wanted to do is tell stories about the real. So my style had to look more real. And to me, real is more like in your face, geometric shapes, hard, like heavy shadow, something that demands your attention. So my style kind of shifted from something that was cartoony and kiddish to something that's angular and full of energy and absolutely grabs your attention. So that's like, but either way that you look at it, because I've used about maybe 4 different types of styles for many years, I guess people say they can tell, like, all right, I know KD drew this because it looks like this. So I've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I was before we got on the show, I was saying that your style of drawing reminds me of like fluid, like water liquid, and fire at the same time, with the sharp edges, like you said, with the geometric shapes, but then there's a lot of movement in your art as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. You've mentioned earlier that, you've created character design, merchandise design, promotional illustrations. You worked on a very popular show called Miraculous Ladybug. What would you say is your medium of choice? What are the tools? What are your tools of choice that
Okay.
you use?
All right. So, tools of choice. I alternate between digital and
Mhm.
traditional tools. When it comes to traditional things, I love ink.
Yeah.
Like just ink, black and white stands out to me. Like I it's not that I despise color, but whenever I'm like drawing, I always just love starting with the lines, and sometimes I love the idea of an unfinished artwork rather than a finished one, just
Right.
because I can see the lines. I don't know, there's beauty in the lines. That's what I could say. Um, but let's see. I'll see now. Look, I lost my train of thought.
So digital, like for digital, what do you
Thank
use?
you. Thank
Well,
you. For digital, I use Clip Studio Paint. Like Clip Studio Paint is really great for people who are comic and manga artists too, because they have a lot of tools for that, as well as the software is just able to make much cleaner lines than Photoshop, just way clean. Um, I use Clip Studio Paint, and then I also alternate on the iPad using Procreate. Procreate is also a really dope program to use, like easy to use on the fly. Like it is as clean as Clip Studio Paint without all of those fancy features, but it has one of my favorite tools ever created, which is a chromatic aberration tool, which allows your stuff to look like the old style animations from back in the day.
oh, nice.
Yeah. Like that's my favorite tool to play with. But it also has a video playback feature along with Clip Studio Paint. They both have that. So I could always show my processes.
Right.
That's awesome. What was your favorite cartoon growing up?
Oh.
Oh my goodness. That's hard. That's hard. But
Okay, top five.
I
Top
mean, I
five.
can tell you my favorite anime because I wear maybe 50 t-shirts with it. Cowboy Bebop. Hands
Yeah.
down.
Nice.
Hands
Nice.
down.
Oh,
Cowboy,
listen.
it's a toss up between the three. Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, and Soul Eater. Those are my three
Oh yeah.
favorite anime.
That's a solid list right there. I'm not mad at that. Shout out to my fellow Watanabe fans.
How do you
Um,
feel?
who are you gonna
No, go
say?
ahead. I know what you're gonna ask.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like, so since Cowboy Bebop came up, and Cowboy Bebop's in the news right now. How are you feeling about the live action that they're working on? That Netflix just leaked photos from. Have you seen that?
I'm more interested in the live action characters now, like the actors who are playing them, because just recently
Mm.
Faye's character, as like she came out and voiced her opinions on how the fans were like, all right, like she doesn't look like she does in the anime, and she was like, oh well, boo-hoo, like not all of us can wear tissue paper and film at the same time. Like, I love her already. Like
Yeah,
just meeting the cast is enough for me.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
at first I had my doubts. I'm not gonna lie, only because I love animated features. Like
sure.
probably a little bit more than live action. It's just something that's personal. Like
Hmm.
that's just a personal preference. However, with a deadly cast like this,
Yeah.
I think this show is looking to be pretty good. And also, shout out to Yoko Kano for like
Hmm.
actually making the music for this, because like
Yes.
that's gonna get me to watch it.
Yeah, and they have Watanabe. They consulted him as well. So
Facts.
they're off to a solid start. I'm like cautiously optimistic.
Fingers crossed.
I do like the actors as well. I feel like they chose a really good cast. And so, yeah, man, we'll see. Hey, while we're talking to you about shows and stuff like that, A question we've been kicking around, and we want to start asking our guests because we're thinking about doing some things in the future. What was the first, either it could be an animated show or it could be a live action thing like movie or TV show
or documentary,
where you saw your like the profession that you now work in, like you saw someone who ultimately is who you became. Can you think of anything that you remember seeing that influenced you?
Okay. That's a good question.
Thank you.
It's a great question. Only because like I have so many influence, but I've never been able to like pin it down. I might need to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's something we've been thinking about a lot because we're considering like doing like recommendations and reviews strictly of films and like documentaries or like TV shows that highlight different forms of art or artists, right? Or even something like, for example, the new Candyman movie. The main character is actually an artist. You know what I mean? So so we're just kind of focusing on that because, like here on Artistry, we talk to a lot of professionals in the art and music realm. And like, it's important for us to see ourselves. So a lot of times I'm wondering if guests can remember ever seeing themselves, like seeing a artist who you end up working in that profession, but you saw it in a movie or something like that.
Because, for instance, I remember as a kid, it's funny, we started talking about this now, but when I reflect back, I think of, for me, when I studied fashion at Pratt. And so the two films that stand out to me is The Color Purple, because Celie was a seamstress. She created the pants, towards the end of the movie. And then also the other one was Mahogany with Diana Ross. She was a fashion designer who went to Italy and everything like that. So that for me was like one of the two films that stood out. But that's something that we definitely plan to continue to spark conversation with a lot of our guests.
Yeah. And if you think of one, maybe we bring you back and we do like a review / recommendation video together. You know what I mean? Talking about it in depth. But yeah, so we know that you've been cooking up a lot of amazing content and you've been working on this one project which I have the honor of being brought in and brought in on and working on with you. So let's talk about Animal Arithmetic a little bit. So can you tell us like how did that come to be? Like how did you come up with the idea to do that?
Okay. Animal Arithmetic started out in its rawest form as poetry. My college thesis that I was working on last year, like senior year, it was called Kingdom Anomalia, the Poetry Bestiary. And because I was so interested in animal behavior, I kind of took that, rolled with it, and also met a lot of different people in my life that I wanted to write poetry about, but also in relation to like how similar animals and people are, but like we always call ourselves a higher up being or a higher up species, but animals and people actually go through some of the same types of emotions. The reason why I resonated with the fox so much and why she's the main character is that what I learned about foxes is that one, they're mostly solitary creatures, especially the females. And they are very, like at first when you meet them, they will easily trust you. But if you kind of break that up by doing something that they don't like, it becomes very hard for them to trust anything down the road. And I noticed like that, like I feel that kind of way sometimes too with some of the people that I've met in life. Sometimes I've met amazing people. Sometimes I meet people who are not so great. And it kind of shifts my way of thinking, and it kind of makes me preserve more of myself inside. So when I created Animal Arithmetic or started to create it, it felt like coming out of the box to let people know that, yeah, yes, I am kind of the fox. This is where I am mentally, spiritually. Like, I don't get to talk about it a lot because I'm not sure a lot of people understand where
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming from in terms of personal personal things, and like how I see the world, and like how I perceive things in the world
Mm-hmm.
differently than other people. Um, my professor at the time, her name was Professor Candace Ivy. She's actually a character
Yeah.
in Animal Arithmetic. Her her motive, if you will, was a raven. Like she related to a raven, and I asked her why, and she said, often people look at crows and ravens as bad things because of the like the color connotation of just being black instead of white. One,
Mm-hmm.
she was also from the South. She was from South Carolina too. And then she also mentioned something about how ravens actually fed a baby, a promised baby in the Bible, but nobody talks about that at all. Like how that good can come out of something that's seen as something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when she looked at my first musings, which was actually like five dogs um, painted on a wall, she asked me what it was. And I said, well, I feel like this is the progression of a human being, but more so like the progression of myself and like what I'm seeing. And she asked me, why dogs?
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, it's funny. People won't believe me when I say this, but my grandmother used to tell me all kinds of crazy stories growing up. And she always used to say that an insult that she used to use with her brothers is "you old dog." And,
Right.
and I'm like, well, why dogs? Like, why does it have to be dogs?
Right.
But what I did with that, because she would always tell those stories over and over again, is I actually made the dogs silhouettes. So they were actually like black outlined dogs, but they
Mhm.
colored in the further you got. And
Oh.
it started with the domestic dog, and then went to a coyote, and then went to a
Mm-hmm.
wolf, and then
Mhm.
went to a fox, and then the last stage was jackal. And she looks at the fox and the jackal, and she says, well, I know you identify with the fox, but do you see yourself as a jackal in the future? Because jackals um, have a lot of wisdom. And
Mm.
I said, you know what? I don't know, because like they say ignorance is bliss sometimes. I think I like where I am right now,
Mhm.
so that I have the ability to learn. And maybe when I'm older, I might be a jackal. So now fox and jackal have kind of been a thing that I've been wrestling with for a while. And then I decided to put that conflict in Animal Arithmetic, where fox is the main character and jackal is actually one of the antagonists.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But they both have very similar ways of looking at things. It's just two different ways of handling the world, if you will. All
Yeah.
of the characters in Animal Arithmetic have a very interesting stance on people, like, and what they value in the world and what is of less value in the world. And like the whole point of Animal Arithmetic was to illustrate a equation, if you will, of a hodgepodge of different thinking people in a time where it seems like everything seems to be like going wrong. What is there to salvage in a time like this?
Mm.
That's what Animal Arithmetic is about.
Wow.
Wow.
So when can we find out more?
Yes.
Very soon,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
extremely soon.
Yeah, and for
Actually,
everyone who's watching right now, we have the website listed in both the chat and across the screen. And if you're listening to the podcast, it's animalarithmetic.com. Be sure to check it out. Some big announcements coming, right?
yes,
Yes. Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to share some of those announcements now, or we're still kind of in a holding pattern?
Oh, we don't have to be in a holding pattern.
All right. All right.
Well,
So let us know what you got cooking up.
all right. So the Animal Arithmetic Project is a manga and a music project by Stan and myself. what we are doing is we are creating a prequel manga so that you can find out how the characters first started. That's going to be a printed manga. And then this also comes with a a whole album, which features all the characters in the album, like with the talents of voice actors from many different ranges of life and many different ranges of professionalism that I found on my journey, and they are absolutely amazing. Like I can't wait to introduce those voice actors to you as well. But also there are an incredible amount of talented musicians on this project as well. You guys are gonna love it. There's a lot of merchandise involved because I'm a merch queen.
Yes.
Everyone likes to
Merch
collect
goddess.
things. We're bringing the heat. We are
Yes.
absolutely bringing the heat. And this whole project is going to drop on Kickstarter very soon. So be on the lookout. Follow my socials and Stan's socials for more details. The Kickstarter is going to drop on September 19th, which is evidently my birthday.
Hey, that's what's up.
Perfect. So we're so excited for that. We're definitely looking forward to learning more. I know Stan, has been keeping it hush hush, but I'm excited for you all because you guys have been working so hard. So yeah, it's going to be good things to come. Good things to come.
For sure. For sure.
And it's Virgo season. You can't go wrong.
Hey, Virgo season.
Shout out to our oldest daughter. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So, and you saw, so just to reiterate real quick, just so, in case anyone missed it, September 19th, besides being Kenya's birthday, is also the launch of the Kickstarter campaign. That's going to have a lot of great things for you to support. So yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. But until that happens, what are you currently, I mean, I know you're working hard on that, but you got any other things lined up, any conventions, things of that nature?
Yeah, I do. It's going to get busy soon. Well, we just finished Otakon, which was amazing. And we just finished Brooklyn Comic Con too.
Nice.
But in October, I will also be at New York Comic Con in the Artist Alley, so you can find me there. And I will also be at Anime NYC in November, so you can find me there in the Artist Alley as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. We're going to transition a little bit. I wanted to reflect on your career overall up until this point, right? So as you think back to Boston College days, high school days, and where you are presently, what would you say has been your biggest lesson? Or lessons, if it's more than one.
A biggest lesson to literally, how do I put this? My biggest lesson would probably have been to just live and learn. Honestly, something about Virgos, even though it's Virgo season, is that we tend to be perfectionists in everything that we want to do. It doesn't go very well, and once you figure it out, you kind of just learn to take things in small strides, whether it's your relationships with people, whether it's how you handle your job, your business, your creative endeavors. Like it's all about like looking at the big picture and not just focusing like nitpick on details too much. My work is very detailed. Sometimes the way that I talk can be very detailed, and I'll lose my train of thought because there are so many details I feel like need to come out. But it's definitely something to just, just like be in a moment and learn and just take things in slowly so that you can formulate a better, bigger picture in your mind of how everything is going. Yeah, I'd say that's the biggest thing that I've learned.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's hard because I think a lot of artists, they tend to be in their head, a lot. And so I think that's a great reminder to like just, be in the moment. Like, yes, you can stress. Yes, there are going to be opportunities that you are stressful and aggravating and causes anxiety, but to just, work through it, breathe through it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Literally breathe.
Yeah. What advice would you give to emerging artists, those who are watching right now, who are either students or in the fields right now, working towards, hopefully to do, a live action or a comic or manga? What would you say to them?
Okay. Well, besides what we just talked about not too long ago, I would say that the time to start is now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of opportunities to many different kinds of creators have opened themselves up. Um, you do have the Panini, the Pazuzu, and the Parallelogram to thank for that. It just is. It's been a very good year per se for creatives.
Mm-hmm.
More and more people are realizing the importance of having us around on Earth to make the content that they want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's like the most of a testament to, if you want to do it, Nike commercial, just do it.
Right.
Like, yeah, yeah, I mean, you have to start somewhere. Of course, you need to plan it out, but like now is the perfect time to start. If you have an idea, it doesn't matter where you come from, like who you are, like you can, like if you have an idea in your head, you should start doing it now.
Right. One thing I wanted to definitely ask, as a female, right, as a woman of color, navigating a space that has been historically predominantly white male, with the exception, of course, of in Asia. Um, how has that been? How has that experience been navigating through that process?
I'm gonna take my helmet off for this one. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
Hey, girl. Hello.
All right. As a female in this creative industry, it is crazy. You kind of learn like the ins and outs of how to deal with people in the higher ups, because it is a predominantly like male based industry.
Mm-hmm.
You earn respect. It's a little bit harder to, but nevertheless, the way that you get places is that you have to earn the respect of people who are in the higher up positions by putting yourself out there, by having a presence, like by literally demanding from people, this is what I want, this is what I can bring to the table, like let's do this.
Right.
Like you can't be shy about things as a woman, especially a black woman. Let's be real. Like
Right.
you have to have the go-getter mentality for everything that you want to do in order for it to be a thing. So
Right.
yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, because I think, there's a lot of folks, especially now. I mean, you mentioned earlier how it's a great time, and it's true because you have avenues like, BlurCon and other places who are for that. It's open. It's predominantly for people of color, for Black people, where they didn't have that. I mean, having gone to conventions with Stan in the past, where literally it's the universal head nod whenever you see another person of color, because everybody knows it's like it's few and far between. It's not that many of us, and so and everybody's experience is different, but the common the common core is we know the struggle, and so to have that and share that with us, we appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. So here's the question that is oftentimes tough for a lot of the creatives we speak to, and that's because most of the creatives we've had on this show are multi-talented. They may be known mostly for the one thing, but it's the wide variety of talents that they have that have fueled them in general and helped them get where they are. So that being said, as a multi-talented artist and disciplined artist, like if you had to only choose one thing that you could do for the rest of your life, which one would you choose and why?
That's a terrible question.
I know it hurts so bad.
Oh God. Oh, okay. If I had to choose one thing I could do for my life, what if I had two answers?
Well, whatever answer you go with first,
two different
that's going to be the real answer. Look, whatever the first one is the real answer.
It's not what you expected, right? Whenever we tell people, whenever we say, we have this is a tough one, people brace themselves and then they're like, ooh, that really is a tough one.
Right. Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Honest, you want my honest?
Yes. Okay. Always.
I would just stick to my manga, like literally. Like it is the thing that means the most to me. It is the story that I want to tell the most with my art. So I would stick with it. It would be a harder path to go down because it is actually a little bit harder to do things like create a manga and make it go viral without the monetary funds that are backing you up on the side, which I get normally from my business. But I'd still do it because I feel like it has more worth than any of the other things that I've been doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's tough, man. Like, we that's something we think about a lot. Because, all of us have a wide variety of things. Like Shell is, has a background in fashion design, but now is doing a lot of film work and stuff. Right. And then me, of course, most people know me for music, but my foundation is visual art. And if I never did visual art, I likely wouldn't have gotten into music, So yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But I think, it's something we all kind of think about because, there are moments that happen in our careers where one of the skill sets that you have becomes the main thing. There's almost everyone has that moment. And depending on your level of success, it may even get to a point where you don't have time for anything else. And, we're just trying to, I guess, in asking that question, not just getting the artists who we're talking to, thinking about it, just, getting the audience to consider that, right? How good with that are you really going to be? Because if you get that one quote unquote dream job and they got you working 80 hours a week.
And it happens.
Yeah, right. It absolutely does. So
will that sustain you?
Yeah, for real. Yeah. For real.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask one last question, which is, I find it interesting that a lot of creatives are also educators. And I know you have a background as an educator as well. And so what do you think has been the most rewarding part of being an educator, and how does that influence your art?
Knowledge is power. Yeah. My family stands by that 100%. Almost all of us are educators. I now believe it, even though I didn't want to kind of become a teacher and I still want to do my creative thing. But being in education has really helped me understand working with different people. And if you're an artist and you're stuck in your head all the time, and that means you're really only focused on you. You're not really seeing things from other people's perspectives.
Yep.
And the job that I currently have now, it's not a teaching position. However, you can still teach with it. It still has its teaching moments. I work as a paraprofessional for District 75 in New York City. And it has been amazing. Honestly, I never thought that I would learn so much from the staff that I work with, but also the students who I work with. Yeah. That's a whole different other perspective, teaching kids with special needs, getting to see how they view the world. That's also very valuable. And not a lot of people have patience or the want to see things from other people's perspectives, but it is such an important thing to be able to do, to connect with a broader audience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sure. We appreciate you for your service. Yeah.
Well, Hun, thank you so much for doing this. This was great. I think it was very informative. I think it's very beneficial for anyone who's listening. It was beneficial for us.
Absolutely.
Learning more about your creative journey. We, of course, wish you nothing but the best. I know you guys have the inside scoop. So, we'll wait for that. But no, thank you so much. This has been an honor and a pleasure having you on the show.
Right back at you. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
I've never even done something like this. So this is the first kind of thing that I've done. So thank you very much.
You know what I'm saying? Like dropping bombs. Right. That's what's up. Well, no, we appreciate you for making time. And before we go, are there any things that you want to end with? Give folks heads up on anything. We'll go ahead and put the ticker back up there so everyone knows where to find you. But please close us out.
I'll just say, well, if you want to know more about the things that I do, that we do, follow us. Like, follow me on all my socials. I have Instagram and Twitter, both the same, KDFoxx. Check out Animal Arithmetic. Check out the website, animalarithmetic.com. You will love what you see. And I hope that you enjoy what we have coming for you in the next few days.
Yay.
Absolutely. And shout out to everyone in the chat. One of our collaborators on the album for Animal Arithmetic, Malcolm Jackson, is in there.
Hey, Malcolm.
Hey, Malcolm.
Shout out to Stephanie Gale. Shout out to her. Also got Raycon, aka Serena, said you're doing amazing, wifey. And and we own Winona. Sorry, I'm about to say your name wrong. Simon. All of you, Paulie Rhyme, who stopped by. We appreciate everyone for stopping by, checking out the video.
You're the best.
Yes, absolutely. Be sure if you haven't liked the video already, make sure you do that. Please share it, with the different people in your network, and consider subscribing to our channel. If you enjoyed this interview, we've had the pleasure of interviewing a lot of amazing other artists, visual artists, musicians, authors, like all types of creatives, most of which are full-time creatives who are making a living, living out their dreams, basically. So definitely worth checking out. I'm sure you'll find much more gems and all that good stuff. And we're also on all of the podcast platforms. You can stream our podcast as well. This podcast, this particular episode will be available starting tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely stay tuned because we have a lot more cool content coming up. And there was something else I wanted to point out, and I'm having a moment. You know what I'm saying? I'm having a senior moment already. I feel like 25 gray hairs just popped up as I was trying to remember. But it's all good. But thank you again, sis. We're going to get ready to close out. But thanks for being on the show, and we'll catch you all next time.
Peace.
All right. Thanks for listening to Artistry, where art meets industry. This podcast has been brought to you by Substantial Art and Music. For more information, please visit www.subartandmusic.com. You can also follow us on social media at Subartandmusic. We'll see you soon. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.